Glaives, a weapon type people either obsess over or do not even consider to be a viable option. I'm in that prize section with a ridiculous amount of glaive kills across multiple weapons racked up over the years, and I'm here to speak the truth of glaives, with just how potent they actually are. I'm not exaggerating when I say they are the best special ammo weapon available with the right setup. They have both damage and utility which is unmatched, and more importantly than anything else, just so fun to use. So here's how this video will work. I want to cover everything in excruciating detail, and I've split it up into these sections. So if there's anything in particular you want to know, feel free to jump over to them. First up, the basics of any glaive. While you have a glaive equipped, you will lose access to your basic and charged melee, but instead gain access to glaive melee. This always counts as kinetic and will benefit from generic melee boosting options like Synthoceps or Wormgod Caress. It will not benefit from glaive damage perks unless specified on them, so options like Frenzy, Surrounded or Rampage will do nothing here. The neat part about this melee is it attacks in 3 parts. You can see this through the attack animations. The third part in this combo deals double damage, essential to getting the most out of it, but more on that later. Next, all glaives have a projectile, which is what the ammo count is for. This actually deals a decent amount of damage with sustained DPS similar to that of a fusion rifle, and this will benefit from damage perks on glaives. Hits with this projectile also charge up the shield bar, which is the final part on all glaives. Holding ADS on glaives will instead activate the shield. While it has charge remaining, any damage you take will be heavily reduced. This is around a 97% damage resist, making you almost invulnerable, but movement speed is reduced, and it only lasts as long as you have shield energy. You can fire projectiles in this state to replenish shield energy though should you need more. This is perfect for reviving a teammate, drawing enemy aggression, or backing up after you got a bit too cocky and decided to run into a crowd of enemies with nothing but a melee attack and a dream. Glaives currently have 3 frames available to them: adaptive, aggressive and rapid fire. Adaptives are middle of the road and also just kind of mid in general. Not really a whole lot going for this archetype of glaives, apart from the fact that there is a large variety of them and some are quite easy to obtain. They do however have a better than typical shield duration stat. Aggressive glaives are the goats. These hit harder per projectile, which is what you want in securing that one-shot kill on enemies to activate perks such as close to melee. They are a little bit more sluggish handling wise, but this does not translate to the melee attacks. All glaives regardless of archetype have the same attack speed as well as damage. Rapid fires are as you would expect. Have more shots available to them, but deal less damage per shot. They handle a bit better too. Wouldn't say this less damage per shot is an advantage usually, but these archetypes of glaives do have a few perk combos available exclusively to them currently, which makes them worth using should you get one of these. The most important aspect of glaives is of course their melee. This is where you get the most value, and not to mention it is ammo free, for the most part at least. But it's not just hold it down and you're good to go. There is an art form to it. As a Brit, I know a lot about stabbing, so listen up. The basic glaive 3-hit combo became a lot better this season, as the 3rd hit in this combo deals double damage. This is just an overall DPS increase against targets which require multiple hits to take down, and I think this is put in place to counter another glaive melee technique. And that technique is holding block whilst meleeing. As you can see, it attacks faster than the standard 3-hit combo. But you will never fully complete the combo, instead just landing hits 1 and 2 repeatedly. This means despite hitting more frequent, the overtime DPS is actually slightly lower. This doesn't mean to never do this however. Against groups of lower health enemies, it will be better to just hold block and melee through them. If a bonus damage isn't needed, more hits is faster kills. There's also perks which trigger on hit, such as the exotic glaive effects, so building them more quickly using this method may be beneficial. There's also the no reg issue. Against certain enemy types, the 3rd hit in the combo will no reg so frequently. This is mainly an issue with ogres and wizards, but you might see it with other enemy types. With these, it is actually worthwhile to just do the 2-hit combo to guarantee hits instead of going for the 3rd. But back to that 3-hit combo, you can improve this via blocks too. but the timing is more specific. Directly after the third hit, block but don't hold it. This will reset the cooldown between combos, allowing you to go into the next one instantly. This is the most effective way to deal glaive melee damage over time, around a 14% DPS increase over just holding the 3-hit combo repeatedly. Break Angle, which I will cover in more detail later, is the only glaive to roll chill clip, and this allows for projectiles to slow. But this also affects the optimal damage combo for melee attacks. You will still want to do the 3-hit into block flash, but as you block, fire a single shot. This causes a full freeze every 2 melee rotations, and that freeze will cause the next melee hit to deal 220% more damage. Of course, don't do this if you don't have enough ammo in the mag or the shots to apply chill clip. Done correctly, Glaive DPS is comparable to other top of the line special ammo options. You can see here a rake angle glaive with Synthoceps active dealt just over 1 million boss damage in 10 seconds. An artifact boosted fusion rifle with triple surges and Storm's Keep with all of its boosts was only just ahead at 1.1 million. But if we're allowed to artifact boost the fusion, then surely we are with the glaive too. I'll cover seasonal boosts at the end of this video, but this is with no bell activated at the same time. This rake angle was instead able to hit 1.8 million, which by the way is ahead of even the meta heavy weapon Queenbreaker, with particle reconstruct and surges only came in at 1.7 million. Glaive perks are weird, in a way that a lot of them you'll see and be like, oh, that perk might be really good. Sword logic on a glaive, if you can get the 50% boost, you might pop off. But no. Pretty much all damage perks only apply to the projectile and do absolutely nothing to the melee. So unless you want to build into the projectile, which is typically not optimal, you can ignore any perks such as these. Adrenaline Junkie, Golden Tricorn, Rampage, Frenzy, though this one you do get handling and reload, or basically any damage perk, you know, you get a point. What this does mean though is it's very easy to see what damage perks you do actually want. Third column with utility choices it's more complicated, but fourth column there's no complications to be found. Most of the time you just want close to melee. That's pretty much it. Close to melee does still require projectile kill, but will give you 10 seconds of 30% increased melee damage, and any melee damage in this time will refresh the duration. So a single projectile final blow can provide you a sizable melee boost for an entire activity should you remain in combat. This also rolls on most modern glaives, so finding one with it should not be a problem. The only exception for glaives which do roll close to melee is rake angle. This one can also roll chill clip, and yes, this is projectile only, but what it offers benefits the melee greatly, as frozen targets which only require 2 shots take 220% melee damage, not to mention that it is a 2-in-1 champion counter. Break Angle is peak. Utility perks, there's much more customization. The better choices amongst these, and why you should look out for them, include the following. Disruption Break. When breaking a combatant's shield, they will take 50% increased kinetic damage. The melee is kinetic damage. Some rapid fire glaives can roll both this and close to melee together for huge boosts. Impulse Amplify provides faster projectile speed, which makes glaives feel much better overall. It also provides a reload scaler, which is much needed sometimes too. Doesn't really do anything special, but it's just a feel good perk. Brave Robber does work with glaive melees, and will fully refill the magazine on each melee final blow. Nice to avoid reloading entirely, and keeping the flow of combat going smoothly. Currently the following perks are only really useful on one glaive respectively, but are worth it for the following reasons. Overflow on rake angle. This doubles the mag size on collecting special ammo, which importantly allows for more chill clip shots, as this perk only affects the top half of the original mag size. Discord on refusal of the call. While this perk is active, it refunds ammo for every projectile final blow, meaning potentially infinite special ammo if used sparingly. From these perks, I'm sure you've managed to piece together some god rolls, but it's a matter of what glaives do these roll on, and what energy type or weapon slot do they belong in. The number 1 legendary glaive right now unexpectedly is Rake Angle, with the role of Overflow and Chill Clip. It can be obtained from Nightfall strikes in certain weeks, but as long as you've had at least one to drop in the past, you can roll Vanguard engrams on them too. Chill Clip provides just so much value, any frozen target will take 220% melee damage, and not to mention provides AoE damage via the shatter, crowd control on slow, and anti-champion to both overload and unstoppable. Any build which can utilise freezing at all will benefit even more. The combo I found great fun doesn't even require a melee follow-up. Just freeze a target via 2 projectile hits, then snipe him with Icebreaker for instant ignition and heavy damage. The melee maxing god roll is available on 2 Glaives, the Greasy Look and forthcoming Deviants. The misses Disruption Break alongside Close to Melee. These are both rapid fire frames and are obtained from Ghosts of the Deep and Salvation's Edge respectively, with forthcoming Deviants being craftable. Close to Melee is an easy to activate 30% damage boost, while Disruption Break requires the enemy to have a shield to break, but any which do will receive 50% more melee damage. Thankfully, all the right targets do fit this criteria. Think tankier enemies like Hive Knights or Wizards, or Fallen Captains. This will also activate on Lucent Hive Moth shields, or Barrier Champions barriers. With this role, you want to stack it with some exotic armour or subclass options which further boost melee damage, as these effects are multiplicative and can get out of hand very quickly. Finally, just any aggressive frame with Close to Melee. These are again Rake Angle, but also Judgment of Kelgarath or Albedo Wing. Rake Angle has Impulse Amplifiers appearing, Judgment has Overflow or Demolitionist, while Albedo has Grave Robber. Any of these 3 Glaives are completely fine as a workhorse type weapon, but I'd still give advantage to the previous 2 god rolls for a best in slot option. The Glaives absolutely love an external melee damage boost. It's what takes them from a balanced special weapon to absolute monsters under the right circumstances, and there's plenty of choices across all classes which provide such benefits. First up, Spirit of Synthoceps, which is available to all classes. When surrounded by 3 or more enemies, Glaive melees do double damage. Easy to activate and will linger for 5 seconds after no longer being surrounded. As long as you are running Prismatic, this is a go-to. And being on an exotic class item, you can pair this with another exotic effect. For Warlocks, try Osmomancy and Cold Snap Grenades, so that you can lead with a freeze for even more damage. Class specific, here's what to look out for. Titans also have base Synthoceps, which is exactly the same as the Spirit version, but also provides super damage and reload plus handling when surrounded. What this does mean is you can use these outside of Prismatic. If you want even more damage, there's a Wormgod Caress. These require a bit more setup, with melee kills providing increased potency stack by stack. But at 5 kills, Glaives will be dealing above triple damage. Even at just 3 stacks, the Wormgods will provide more of a boost than Synthoceps. The same stacking system also increases projectile and any other weapon damage too, at 35% boost at 5 stacks, scaling down at lower values. Titans also have the Banner of War aspect. While this is active, any melee damage is increased, but while active, the previously mentioned exotics do lose a bit of potency as to not be completely broken. It is worth running though, of course, if you want to maximise damage. For Banner of War, you also don't have to be V1 with it active, as Banner of War is also shared amongst nearby teammates. So basically, if you are rocking a Glaive, blackmail your fire team into running Banner of War. Hunters, you have a designated Glaive exotic Triton Vice, but unfortunately this doesn't provide any melee damage bonus above that of Synthoceps. In fact, it is just Synthoceps. It provides double damage when surrounded by 3 or more enemies. But there is a bit more advantage to this exotic, and it lies in its additional Glaive effects. Any melee kill will move 1 ammo directly to the magazine, with the ability to overflow the mag to double capacity, and projectiles are improved too. Any final blow with these cause enemies to explode, making traditional damage perks somewhat more viable. Even something like Demolitionist can benefit here for multiple activations from a single shot. Finally, Warlocks, you have the biggest potential melee damage boost, but coming with the caveat that it's quite hard to maintain. Winter's Guile is functionally identical to Wormgod Caress, with melee kills granting melee damage buffs up to 5 stacks. But at 5 stacks it's not just triple damage, it's almost quintuple base at 275% extra. With the other stack amounts on screen now. Where this differs is how long these stacks remain for. While Wormgod loses stacks over time, Winter's Guile will remain for 5 seconds, with any melee kills refreshing the duration. But after those 5 seconds, all boosts are lost. which leads to a problem in which this exotic is only useful where you don't actually need it. Against a single target, the boost won't last long enough to be useful. Against multiple low health targets, it will do, but do you really need such a powerful boost against low health targets in the first place? Probably not. Warlocks have something a bit different though, the Karnstein armlets. These provide no such damage boost, but instead cure and restoration on any melee kill, including that of Glaives. Survivability is very important when playing aggressive, and these provide the perfect survivability pairing. Quickly on survivability, there's honestly too many options now to list off, but here's some you can consider if you're struggling. Devour is heal on kill, similar to Karnstein's. Woven Mail or Frost Armor both reduce incoming damage to you. Amplified does too, but to a lesser extent. However, it also makes enemies less accurate. Void Overshields give you more effective health to begin with. Heal Nades can provide a panic heal on demand, and there's even more niche options like Strand Clones to distract, Blinding Grenades to disorient enemies, and so on. If you build into it, there's no shortage of survivability options. There's a host of exotic glaive options, and these are all incredible. Even the ones you wouldn't typically think of all have their usages. The once class exclusive options first. Edge of Action is sleeper meta, simply put. The bubble dome it provides for only 6 hits of either melee or projectiles does so much. I have a whole video on it here if you want more detail, but basically it's survivability, independent weapon damage boost to yourself and allies, and very versatile. You can use it defensively to provide a safe location, or aggressively popping it directly on a boss target so you can melee spam them safely. There's also the whole destroying your own bubble thing and still receiving its benefits, but again, check out the video for that. It's genuinely a game changer. Oh, and Edge of Action also has destabilizing rounds as a bonus effect. We all know how good that is this season. Edge of Intent I think has been forgotten by the vast majority of the community, but it's not bad at all. There's a lot of builds out there which have a lot going for them but lack restoration. Sometimes stacking damage resist is just the exercise in dying slower with no way to get health back. Intent can solve this issue. Like Edge of Action, it requires 6 hits for its extra effect. That effect is spawning in a healing turret. It is functionally identical to Speaker's Sight, and this is for good reason a very highly used exotic. But this can be used on any class, any subclass. It shines the most where restoration isn't available via abilities, but will be improved more so on Solar Warlock with Touch of Flame, as this upgrades the turret to provide cure and restoration ×2 instead of a base ×1, which is just increased health regen and restoration over time. Edge of Intent also has Incandescent for projectile final blows, which provides a bit more solar synergy. The final Edge of Glaive is Edge of Concurrence, and like Intent is actually rather slept on. This time the Glaive is all about jolting. After 6 hits you can fire a tracking arc wave which jolts targets on contact as well as dealing quite potent damage. This can also chain to nearby targets too. If on an arc build which requires jolt to activate subclass synergies, this is a very easy way to do so. Not to mention this Glaive also has jolting feedback, which will provide jolt on projectile hits, every 4 shots normally or 3 shots while amplified. Being a rapid fire Glaive actually helps here, faster rate of fire and deeper reserves to apply jolts more frequently. Would I use this Glaive over other options typically? Probably not, but there's one place this Glaive might be the best weapon in the game, Gambit. This ult fire aggressively tracks other players and will instantly delete them on contact. If you invade and land this shot, it can be an immediate team wipe, and just using a Glaive for regular playing Gambit is already peak. The non-class exotic Glaives include Vexcalibur. If you want an extra layer of survivability, this is the one. Blocking with Vexcalibur has an additional effect of building an overshield over time. And if you have any overshield and score a melee kill, it will be upgraded to a full overshield. Vexcalibur also increases its own melee damage if you have an active overshield, making this a pseudo close to melee. Against Vex targets, Vexcalibur becomes even better, dealing 25% more damage at base, and melee hits will disorientate Vex targets. Any Vex content, both existing and upcoming, do consider Vexcalibur. I'll just let the gameplay speak for itself on this weapon, absolutely tearing through legend level content without even needing a single anti-champion mod to clear. With this you also have the choice of a movable object, Grave Robber, or replenishing Aegis as catalyst slot perks. Typically I'd go for Grave Robber, but replenishing Aegis could work too if you want to use this as a more defensive focused weapon. Finally, winterbite. The main difference here is it's in the heavy slot, but because of this it is improved across the board compared to other glaives. Its projectile is slower moving but freezes any targets which are even nearby, and then detonates on impact for heavy damage. More importantly, its melee is fantastic. These effects all require at least one ammo to be in the magazine, so never fully drain this weapon, but while this criteria is met, all melee hits apply 40 slow stacks, enough for a freeze in a 3-hit combo. And all melee attacks also just deal 50% more damage, which for something passive is insane. This makes winterbite outdamage all other glaives, even those with close to melee active, especially when you consider the shatter damage and bonus melee damage to frozen targets. If you want to make the most out of this freeze, you can also prime enemies with slow stacks before using winterbite. Example, Tanasha's Mastery Chill Clip applies 40 slow stacks, then 2 hits of winterbite apply 80. Since this totals over 100, the enemy will be frozen just in time for the third melee hit of a combo, which will deal double damage when doubled again by the fact the target's frozen. Or just the typical 3-hit combo block flash will work just fine with winterbite too. Finally, for this season, Glaives do have artifact support, one of them being incredible for melee damage, providing essentially an extra pair of Synthoceps. Unstoppable Glaive does what it says. Glaives can stun unstopped champs. The good part here is the Glaive melee also stuns. Hold the line will provide cure when defeating enemies with the Glaive while surrounded, the surrounded criteria being identical to Synthoceps. This does have a 5-second cooldown between activations, but look, any kind of healing is always appreciated. No Bell is the big one. Blocking any damage with a Glaive provides a melee damage boost, an increase of 85% for 6 seconds. It can be a single point of damage blocked by holding up a shield for just a split second, and is also easy to activate off predictable boss stomps. The second part of this mod is an ammo economy help. Rapid melee defeats with a Glaive will provide 2 ammo in reserves for free. Note that this does not work with winterbite unfortunately, but any other Glaive in the game it will. So that is everything. Hopefully there has been enough here to get at least a few Glaive converts if you've not given them much of a thought before now. They are all incredibly fun and very effective, especially right now with all the boosts they're getting. Thank you for watching.